Good day. We are going to be looking at Esther chapter 3 today. This is where we first meet the character Haman, real historical figure, of course. Before we do, let's go ahead and pray. Father in heaven, God, thank you for your word. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for all you teach us. Father, I pray for all the viewers today, Father, that you would encourage them to spend time with you. That you grant them your peace that passes all understanding. Father, that you would encourage us by answering our prayers, Father, that you would move in my life and the lives of the viewers today in a way that we see that you're with us, aware of our needs, and fighting for us, Father. And I pray a blessing on the viewers for caring about your word and seeking you and serving you, Father. And please may we get to know you better today. In Jesus' holy name, amen. So, I also want to repeat for those who saw yesterday's chapter, I am encouraging everyone to financially support the Clarity Women's Care Crisis Pregnancy Center in Carbondale, Illinois. Why that one? Because they are the only crisis pregnancy center pro-life organization fighting abortion in the new abortion capital of the Midwest. Carbondale is where all the abortion clinics from the surrounding states that outlawed abortion after Roe versus Wade moved. And Carbondale was at the center of the big black X that God painted across our country with the two eclipses in April. So Clarity Women's Care is fighting the battle, and we need to support them. I am not connected to them in any way. I don't benefit financially. They haven't promised me anything. I'm supporting them myself at this point financially just to help with what I can. But I'm encouraging you, and I ask you to encourage others to support them. As a church, I think this is just the seminal moment where we can all step up and support this one organization that's daring to fight the good fight in that state. And if you know others that have been serving in the pro-life movement, or others living in that area, and encourage them to volunteer, encourage others to consider even moving there and opening another crisis pregnancy center. We need to take the battle to that place. In a figurative sense, nobody's attacking anybody, but we need to have stations of prayer there, stations of service where the church is serving as the loving hands and feet and mouth of Christ, and rescuing babies and rescuing women. So if you can't do any of those things, of course, most of us can't. You can at least support them with $50 a month. And so I'm encouraging everyone to do that. Now, back to chapter 3 of Esther. I understand, I'm understanding more and more why God had me do Esther. I think it's key even for understanding Daniel in the near future. But it's a wrap up of 1 Samuel in a way, because we're seeing a descendant of the king that Saul spared in 1 Samuel now form a plot against the Jewish people. We're also seeing this play out today. The story that's laid out in the book of Esther is the foundation of the Jewish holiday Purim, which is based in this, that Haman is going to try to plot against the Jews, and then the Jews overcome almost miraculously through Esther. And the holiday of Purim celebrates this foiled plot, that God foiled the plot of the Persian official to attack the Jews or kill the Jews. And they celebrate that holiday to this day. And yet, even in modern day, we have a connection to the book of Esther, because we've had a blood moon on the last Purim in March. Blood moons represent persecution or an attack on God's people, the bloodying of God's people. And we're going to have another blood moon on the next Purim next year, and another blood moon the next Purim the following year. And that is very rare to have 3 blood moons on 3 Purims in a row. And at the same time, a war is rising up between the modern Persia and modern Jewish people. So these things are all just repeated themes throughout history. Okay, anyways, let's get to the text itself. Verse 1 says, "After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes who were with him." So, again, we believe this Ahasuerus is Xerxes. His name in Persian means magnificent or illustrious. But what's kind of funny is that in Hebrew, his name really means noisy, certainly. It's like certainly noisy. And so in Persian, it's like he is magnificent. In Hebrew, it's like that guy's a noisy, clanging gong. Okay. And in fact, to this day, when I believe on Purim it is that Jews will read the book of Esther in family settings or in synagogue, and whenever they read the name of Haman, they'll go ooh and make a bunch of noise. Okay. So now, again, we're not going to have records of this because Herodotus, the Greek historian, the main historian who wrote about the Persian Empire, wrote primarily about the events in Xerxes' reign that were before these events. And we don't have a lot of Persian documents or inscriptions. So the more archaeologists discover, the more these stories are going to be confirmed. Everything that could be confirmed with what we found so far has been confirmed. Archaeology hasn't discovered anything that would disprove Esther. On the contrary, it only confirms it. But I don't believe we have a specific confirmation of Haman in the inscriptions or records, but we don't have many of them, so that's not surprising. Archaeologists didn't believe that Pontius Pilate existed for a long time, for more than 100 years, until we found an inscription of him, and now they can't deny it. So it's only a matter of time, a lot of times. Anyways, so Haman is this official that is being raised up later in Xerxes' reign. So Esther's been queen for a little while now. He's a son of King Agag. He's an Agagite. He's the son of that king that Saul spared. And he is making him chief chancellor, chief of staff. Okay, so he's elevating him. Something Haman did made the king like him. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king commanded concerning him. So from this, we see all the king's servants who were within the king's gate. So understand that in gates were often had benches. It wasn't just like a door. It was like this big, if you think of a castle, it was a big enclosed. Sometimes it would go in, turn, and then turn again to protect against battering rams. And there'd be maybe multiple doors or grills or things blocking your way in if they closed it. But there would be benches there where judges and men of honor, government officials would sit throughout the day, and cases would be brought to them, or legal matters and things like this. And so the King's Gate would have been an important place. These places were kind of the center of civic life or public life in a city often. And it's not the king's throne room, but smaller civic or public affairs would be done there, court things, legal things. So this means that all of the king, when it says the king's servants, it means his officials, the people doing the king's business, are there to entertain the people or receive the people and do whatever needs doing. Mordecai was among them, because we saw him in the last chapter sitting in the king's gate after Esther became queen. He wasn't there before she became queen, but after, yes. So she must have made a request that he be allowed to be part of the king's court or made a king's servant. While he was a servant, an official, is when he heard about the plot of the eunuchs to kill him, to kill the king. But now we're seeing there's a lot of the king's servants who hang out in the king's gate. The king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" So the king had commanded that everyone would bow to Haman, and Mordecai will not. So they're telling him, "Why are you not obeying the king's law?" The king himself is not aware of it, and Haman isn't even aware of it until, because in verse 4 we see, "Now it happened when they spoke to him daily, and he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew." So there must be enough of the king's servants in the king's gate that when Haman is coming through, he is not noticing that there's one particular guy who isn't bowing down. Otherwise, he would have seen it himself. And they're telling him daily, like, "Hey, man, aren't you going to bow?" And he's like, "No, I can't." Why is Mordecai not bowing? He only will bow to God. He's saying, "I am Jewish. I bow to no man. I only bow to God." But the text is cutting that. They're leaving out, he won't bow to anyone but God. They're just saying because he's a Jew. So it's leaving out that little bit. Because from the Persian perspective, the thing about the God, oh, yeah, there's lots of gods. We know everybody's got their own religion. He's a Jew. Jews don't do this. This is the problem. So they're talking to him daily. They're warning, saying, "Aren't you going to bow today?" And he says, "No, I only bow to God. I don't bow to people." And they just can't believe it. But after a time of talking to him, they finally go to Haman and say, "Hey, Mordecai won't bow to you." And it says they wanted to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. They wanted to see if punishment would be issued or if Mordecai would be given a pass. And if he's given a pass, then they don't have to bow. And from Haman's perspective, this is exactly what it means. If Mordecai doesn't bow and he's okay with it, then the others don't have to bow, and his authority or the visible respect will slowly diminish until when he walks through, nobody's bowing anymore. And that isn't what Haman wants. Haman's whole goal is to be bowed to. When Haman saw that Mordecai, in verse 5, did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. You know, prideful people, when you don't validate their ego, nothing makes them angrier. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. Well, why? So Haman isn't just like, "I'm just going to get Mordecai." No, he said, "I need to kill all the Jews because this is the reason he won't bow." He says, because he's Jewish. Why would Haman make that leap? Well, fundamentally, he is under the inspiration of the enemy. He belongs to the enemy. The enemy is his father. So hatred for the Jewish people, for God's people, is kind of naturally flowing in his veins. He's easily inspired by what the enemy wants to inspire him with. That's the truth, and that is the bottom line. However, if we're trying to look at this from the human reasoning, what is going on in his head, well, he's filled with wrath, and he's filled with so much wrath, he doesn't want to take it out on just Mordecai. He wants to get rid of all of Mordecai's people as the ultimate revenge. He's also, once again, the son of the devil, and the devil is a murderer. So he loves the idea of being able to exert a power. If he could kill an entire people group, everybody will fear him. And then everybody will really bow. Like, it's one thing if they're saying, hey, Mordecai won't bow to you. And then he takes Mordecai and has him whipped or imprisoned or kicked out somewhere or even killed Mordecai. That'll put the fear in them, like they'll bow. But what if he can, as revenge, kill all of Mordecai's people? That would make people fear him. And Mordecai and Haman wants worship. He's a son of the devil. He wants worship. Okay. That's why he wants people bow to him. That's why he's filled with wrath when they won't. And he's reasoning to himself that, well, if one Jew won't bow to me, then if there could be other Jews in the future who won't bow to me either. So we just need to nip this problem in the bud and get rid of all of them now. Verse 7, in the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is the lot. So Purim, remember I said that name? Pur is a Persian word for like a lot, to cast lots or dice or something to predict the future, to divine things. And so Purim or Purim is multiple lots. So they're casting lots, they're divining what they should do in this situation. And that's where the holiday name comes from. Purim means lots, or to cast lots. So they cast lots, Purim, before Haman to determine the day and the month until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. So they're basically casting lot. They've like written out months on the ground, I guess, and they're casting dice or lots over each month, trying to see which roll or which configuration of whatever it is they're actually throwing indicates that's the ideal month to try to eradicate the Jewish people. And so they're doing this in the month of Nisan, which is the first month of the Jewish calendar. Okay, it's the 14th of Nisan, for example, is Passover. So we just had this in April. Roughly March, April is Nisan, depending on how it lines up with our Gregorian Roman calendar. So they're in the first month of the Hebrew year, casting lots over all the months of the year to figure out when they should do this. And they don't get a positive answer until they roll it on the last month of the year, which is called Adar. That's the 12th month. So all the way through the Hebrew calendar. So basically the last month, they finally got a lot, said, yeah, try it in Adar. Attack the Jewish people in the last month of the year. And that is when Purim is celebrated, because that's when Haman's plot was planned. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Notice he does not say Jews. Why? Because he's trying to persuade the king. He wants to move him into an agreement on what he's about to do. And the Jews rise to the top of every society because they're so talented and blessed and anointed by God. And so there would have been Jews of high prominence in a number of industries and wealthy probably in the Persian Empire by this time, because it always happens. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's God's blessing. It's his favor on them. And we should never be envious of this. But notice he doesn't say, he doesn't come out with the name Jews. He doesn't want the king to have an initial emotional reaction, good or bad, well, good for sure, to the people if he names them. So he just says, hey, there's a certain people dispersed in your empire. In all the provinces of your kingdom, these people are. And their laws are different from all of the people. So these guys are oddballs, king. They're oddballs. They're not conforming. and they do not keep the king's laws. Now he's saying these people are universally traitorous. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. King, there's a certain people group that isn't just a province that we've conquered. It's a random people group like gypsies who are scattered throughout all of your provinces, and all of them are traitors, and they're not obeying the king's law. So now he's painting this picture of like there's this seditious people group in all your provinces that is like raising up a rebellion against you, king. This the image he is painting. He said, we can't let these people remain. Obviously, king. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed. And given the past stories that we've seen in the first 2 chapters, what do you think he approached the king when the king was kind of drunk? And in the same mode where he's been doing crazy, decisions about his queens and things like this. I have a feeling he knew when to approach the king. He says, let a decree be written that they be destroyed. That they just be destroyed. Not that we will kill them all, but they be destroyed. Makes it passive voice. They'll just be destroyed. We're not going to talk about how. And he said, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work to bring it into the king's treasury. So Haman is a very wealthy man, and he's using his wealth to buy power. And perhaps that's why the king elevated him to first chancellor. Perhaps Haman had bought this position. Perhaps this isn't the first monetary offer, he said. And the king was like, money? Yeah, you can be my first. If you're this wealthy, sure, you must know what you're doing in running business, sure. But he's offering, it says, look, I think we should do this decree. This is a dangerous people, seditious and rebellious against you, king. I think they need to be destroyed. You know what I'm going to do? I'm so generous. I'm going to give 10,000 talents of silver, which is a huge amount of money, huge amount of silver. I'm going to put it in your treasury, and we'll use it to pay those who'll do the work of destroying this seditious people. I said, I'm gonna raise up a militia, a government army to eradicate these guys. I'm gonna pay for them with my own money. You don't have to do a thing, king. And there'll probably be some left over, don't you think? We can do this without using all 10,000 talents. Verse 10, so the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you. So Haman's giving the money, and the king's like, yeah, the money be given back to you. So it wasn't even the king's money, but he's like, sure, you're paying me, I'll pay it back to you. You can do whatever you want, Haman. You're my guy, you're first chancellor. I don't even know who these people are. At no point has he even said Jews in all of this. But he's giving him his signet ring so Haman can stamp it with his king's approval without even naming who the people really are. Then almost. They're making the decree on paper. And a decree was written according to all that Haman commanded to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province. So the satraps were bigger than just a province. They were over multiple provinces. To the governors who were over each province, to the officials of all people, to every province according to its script, and to every people in their language. So once again, we see that in the Persian Empire, there was an effort to respect the individual languages and customs of each people group of each province. In the name of King Ahasuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's signet ring. And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews. Verse 13. Both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. So exactly, this signet ring is being used to sign a decree, and the 13th day of the first month of Nisan, and then saying that we're going to do this act against the Jewish people on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is exactly 11 months later. Sounds like 12, but it's actually 11 because 12 would put it fully 1 year back in the first month again. But 13th day both times. Sorry. And that should be, since we're on a lunar calendar, there should be full moons both times. Notice the last part, and to plunder their possessions. Sorry. So the motivation here is to steal their goods. This is why people would do it. The decree is going out not just to the standing little army or soldiers that Haman's going to raise up and pay. No, they're authorizing all the Persian people to attack the Jews on this one day and to keep their money and goods for themselves. Which, once again, this sounds like what happened in Germany before the Holocaust. And this was Hitler's main criticism against the Jewish people back then. He said they're rich, they've gotten rich off our backs, they're bankers, they've got all the money, we need to get it back. Today, anyone who's anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish says the same thing. They control the banking system. It's very similar. So the same thing then, they're like, they've got all this wealth, we're going to get it back. And perhaps Haman already had some other problems with other Jews, which is why when Mordecai won't bow, it's like the last straw, and he's like going to say, let's just get all the Jews. He's got the spirit of Hitler on him. And he's encouraging the people to participate in this because their reward is going to be they get all the goods, they get all the loot, they get all the money. And very clearly, it's not just men, it's young and old, children, women. We're going to kill them on this day, this one day. And we're going to see, so this decree is going to go out in every language to every province. There's going to be a full 11 months of preparation where people are going to be talking about this, getting ready for this, preparing for this. The Jews are going to be cowering and in fear coming up to this day. I imagine they would try to leave. And yet the Jews are not going to be allowed to defend themselves. That's part of the law. Well, actually, this law didn't say they couldn't, but without the king's explicit permission, they can't defend themselves in a serious way other than, put up their hands and fight off. They can't raise up an army themselves to defend themselves. That would be viewed as sedition against the king. It would be viewed as the Jews are actually raising up a rebellious army if they acquire soldiers for themselves to fight their own battles. So they would be limited to what they could do personally and individually to fight off whoever would attack them. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all people, that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, hastened by the king's command, and the decree was proclaimed in Shushan, the citadel. So it's gone out to every province, the whole land, in their own language. And then the last part of verse 15, so the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. So Haman said, yes, the decree has gone out, the decree is successful. Let's go drink, king. And this is obviously what the king loves to do. He loves to party, he loves to drink, he gets drunk, he has women, he doesn't want to be bothered with matters of state. He's happy to leave this in Haman's control. In fact, Haman just saved him, didn't he? He just warned him of this seditious people that's disobeying the king's law, and Haman's taking care of it with his own money. What a great guy. What a great guy. King can relax. What a blessed man, king am I, to have a guy like this. Takes care of my problems, pays for them himself, protects my wealth, my time, doesn't bother me with the stress. Let's just go get drunk. Let's have fun and celebrate this beautiful provision that I have in this man named Haman. But the city of Shushan was perplexed. So the city of Shushan, the capital city of the Persian Empire, is confused because this decree has come out of nowhere, and it is specifying it's the Jewish people who are to be killed. And as I said, most certainly by this amount of time, knowing the history of the Jewish people, there are prominent Jews that have risen up into all kinds of industries, into educational things, into jewelry. If there's any banking going on, of course, they're going to be in that. There's any prominent industry, they're going to rise up to the top, and they'll be important figures already in the city. And they're not doing anything bad. The Jewish people are very moral people usually, and especially in this time, they would have been. And so the city of Shushan is knowing, hey, what? We're going to kill all the Jews? Why? And the greedy among them would have been like, sounds like a great opportunity. But others would have been friends with them and said, and especially those in prominence or any kind of success in business, they would have said, why are we doing this? So, anyways, that is chapter 3. We leave the people in confusion and Haman and the king getting drunk. And we'll see what Mordecai and Esther do as we go forward. So anyways, I hope this was educational for you and that you're learning about the Persian Empire and the story of Esther and Mordecai and how God protects his people. And we will see you guys soon.